The assistant slams the file onto the conference table so hard the sound echoes like a gunshot through the 35th floor office, and the words that follow hit even harder. $3 million, gone, just vanished from the hospital that was supposed to change everything. The one that was built on a promise, the one that meant more than all the others combined. St. Grace Memorial Hospital. His first, his legacy. And someone inside is bleeding it dry while covering their tracks so well that every official investigation comes back clean, every auditor finds nothing, every whistleblower report leads nowhere. The man at the window doesn't turn around. His hands are gripping the glass so tight his knuckles have gone white, and in the reflection, you can see his jaw working, teeth grinding, the kind of rage that comes from watching something sacred being desecrated. He built that hospital 15 years ago because of a little girl dying in an ambulance, turned away by hospital after hospital because she had no insurance, no money, no value in their system. He'd been younger then, angrier, and he'd thrown everything he had at those paramedics, threatened lawsuits, refused to leave until she was in surgery. She lived, and he swore that night that he'd build a place where money never decided who deserved to live. Now someone is making a fortune by forgetting that promise. The decision forms in seconds. No more investigators who get stonewalled. No more audits that somehow miss the obvious. If he wants the truth, he needs to become invisible. He needs to become exactly the kind of person hospitals forget about. Strip away the billion-dollar empire, the name that opens doors, the face that appears in Forbes and Fortune. What's left is just another body, just another patient the system can ignore. 24 hours later, a man in worn jeans and a jacket that's seen better days walks through the emergency room entrance of St. Grace Memorial like he's done this before, like he knows how to make himself small, forgettable. He gives his name as Alex Carter at the intake desk, says he's a construction worker with a workplace injury and no insurance, and the receptionist processes him without ever looking at his face. He's a number now. A bed assignment. Next patient, please. Always next. Never now. The charity ward is on the 4th floor where the paint peels and the lights flicker, and the smell of industrial cleaner can't quite mask the decay underneath. He gets a bed in a room with 5 other patients, thin curtains between them, every cough and groan and whispered prayer bleeding through. This is what happens when no one with power is paying attention. This is what his hospital has become in the shadows. He starts watching immediately. The nurse who checks his vitals doesn't make eye contact. The doctor who reviews his chart spends less than a minute in the room. His 6 p.m. medication arrives at 9. Everywhere he looks, there are cuts that bleed a system dry, missing supplies, broken equipment that stays broken. Patients discharged too soon because beds are more profitable when they're cycling through bodies instead of healing them. He photographs everything with a phone he's hidden in his jacket, documents every discrepancy, builds his case piece by piece. Then the night shift walks in and everything changes. Her voice reaches him first, warm and genuine in a place that's cold and mechanical, thanking the departing nurse, asking about the patient in bed 3 who hasn't slept in 2 days. When she gets to him, she doesn't just glance at his chart and move on. She stops. She looks at him like he's a person, not a problem. She checks his vitals with hands that are gentle, asks how he's feeling and actually waits for the answer, listens when he speaks. She notices his blanket is thin without him saying anything, disappears, and comes back with a thicker one that smells clean and warm. Adjusts his pillow, fills his water pitcher, tells him to press the call button if he needs anything, and the crazy part is, she means it. Everyone deserves to be comfortable, she says with a tired but genuine smile. Money doesn't change that. He lies there after she moves to the next bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling something crack in his chest. In his world, everyone wants something. Every kindness expects a return. But here, where he's nobody, someone is choosing to care without getting anything back. Over the next 3 days, he watches her work herself to exhaustion, covering shifts when others call out, staying late when the workload is impossible, using her own money to buy food for patients whose trays never arrive, fighting with the pharmacy about delayed medications, documenting every problem in careful handwriting like she's building evidence without even knowing it, spending her break holding the hand of the elderly man in bed too who has no family, no visitors, no one. Late at night, when the hospital settles into uneasy quiet, she sits at the edge of his bed and they talk. Small things first, bad coffee, weather, then deeper. She tells him why she became a nurse, and her voice carries a conviction that makes his throat tight. "Someone saved my life when I had nothing," she says, looking at her hands. "I was 8, dying. Every hospital turned me away. Then this man appeared, and he wouldn't let me die. I never saw his face clearly, but he saved me when the system said I wasn't worth saving. So now I pay that forward. To everyone. Because someone chose to see me as human when it mattered most." The memory hits him like a freight train. 15 years ago. A little girl bleeding in an ambulance, a mother screaming. His younger, angrier voice threatening lawsuits until they finally took her into surgery. He built St. Grace Memorial because of that night, because of a girl whose name he never learned. And here she is, the reason for everything, taking care of him without knowing he's the ghost of her salvation, that every act of kindness she performs is an echo of the moment that changed both their lives. But he can't tell her, not while he's lying about everything else, because while she's saving patients, he's building his case, photographing records, documenting patterns. 2 names keep appearing. The chief of surgery with his unnecessary procedures and inflated billing, the hospital administrator with her creative accounting. They're stealing from people who can't afford to be stolen from. And she hasn't noticed because she's too busy actually caring to see the corruption 3 floors above her head. He should feel satisfied. The investigation is working. Soon he'll have enough evidence to burn it all down, but instead he feels the weight of every lie growing heavier with every conversation, every smile, every moment of connection built on deception. She thinks he's Alex Carter, broken, someone who understands needing help. She has no idea she's talking to the man who owns the building, who could end her career with a phone call, who saved her life once and built an empire trying to save everyone like her. On the 7th night, his body rebels. He's been ignoring the cover story, the medications he's supposed to take, the rest he supposedly needs. Too focused on evidence. Too consumed by feelings he can't afford. He makes it 3 steps from his bed before the floor rushes up. He wakes to her face above his, her hands on his pulse, her voice cutting through the fog. She's calling for help, starting an IV, giving orders. The hours blur. Tests, scans, her face appearing and disappearing. He tries to speak, but the words come out wrong. My hospital built it for her, for you, for everyone. She thinks he's delirious. She stays anyway, through her shift and into the next, choosing to care when she could have gone home. When he finally surfaces, she's in the chair beside his bed, exhausted, worried. She tells him he scared her, tells him to take better care of himself, and he realizes she saved his life again while he's been deceiving her from the start. Every conversation, every connection, every feeling between them built on lies. That's when he notices how she moves through the room, checking supplies, documenting everything, making notes about medications that should be there but aren't. She's been building evidence without knowing it, her careful attention to detail, her refusal to let things slide, her meticulous patient notes are creating a paper trail that could take down the people destroying this hospital, which means she's made herself a target without realizing it. 3 floors up, in an office with city views, 2 people are looking at security footage, looking at a nurse who asks too many questions, looking at her documentation, and they're making a decision that will destroy everything. He needs to move fast, expose them before they realize she's dangerous, before the woman who saved his life twice pays the price for his deception. But he has no idea it's already too late. What would you do if the person you're trying to protect is in danger because of you? If every lie you told to expose the truth becomes the weapon used against the one person who deserves it least? And when everything crashes into the light, can love survive being born from deception, or does it become just another casualty of good intentions gone wrong? Here's what nobody tells you about falling in love while living a lie. Every moment of genuine connection becomes a countdown to the explosion that will destroy everything. He recovers from his collapse, But something fundamental has shifted. She saved his life in that hospital room, pulled him back from the edge with the same determination someone once showed for her. And now every time she walks past his bed, every time she checks his vitals with those careful hands, every time she smiles at him like he matters, he feels the weight of his deception pressing down on his chest like a physical thing. The evidence is almost complete. Photographs of falsified records, documentation of missing supplies that somehow appear on billing statements, patterns of unnecessary procedures that generate maximum revenue. The chief of surgery and the hospital administrator have built an empire of fraud so sophisticated it's almost beautiful in its cruelty. Almost. But beauty doesn't excuse evil, and he's close now. So close to having everything he needs to bring it crashing down. The problem is, she's getting close too, and she doesn't even know it. He watches her during her rounds, sees the way her eyes narrow when medication counts don't add up, sees her make notes in that personal journal she carries, sees her ask questions that make the other nurses uncomfortable. She's not investigating. She's just refusing to accept that missing supplies and delayed medications are normal. She's just being good at her job in a place where being good at your job means noticing when things are wrong. And in a corrupt system, the person who notices is always the most dangerous. Late one night, when the hospital has settled into that 3 a.m. quiet where even the machines seem to whisper, she sits at the edge of his bed again, and they talk in voices meant only for each other. She tells him about the patients she's cared for over the years, each one a story of small victories against impossible odds. The single mother with cancer who survived because she refused to give up. The elderly man who everyone said wouldn't walk again but did because she believed he could. The teenager who came in after a suicide attempt and left with hope because someone finally listened. Every person deserves to be seen, she says, her voice soft but firm in the darkness. Not just looked at, really seen. That's what he did for me, that man who saved my life. He saw me when I was invisible to everyone else. And I think that's what broke me. Not almost dying, but realizing how close I came to being nothing more than a statistic, a body that didn't matter because there was no money attached to it. So now I see everyone. I document everything. Because the moment we start deciding who deserves care and who doesn't, we stop being healers and start being executioners. He lies there in the dark, listening to her breathe, and feels something crack wider in his chest. She's describing the exact philosophy he built St. Grace Memorial to embody. The exact values someone corrupted while he was building bigger hospitals, making bigger deals, trusting that his first and most important legacy would protect itself. She became the living embodiment of his dream while he was too busy expanding his empire to notice his foundation was rotting. And now she's in danger because she actually believes in what he only built. The next morning, everything accelerates. He's in the bathroom when he hears voices outside his room, sharp and tense. He cracks the door and sees her confronting a supply clerk about missing medications, her journal open in her hands, her voice calm but relentless. Where did the morphine go? The inventory says 12 vials. We have 4. This is the 3rd time this month. I need answers. The clerk's face goes white, stammers something about administrative errors, hurries away. And she makes a note. One more piece of evidence she doesn't know she's collecting. One more reason for the people upstairs to consider her a problem that needs solving. He wants to warn her. Wants to tell her to stop asking questions, stop documenting, stop being so thoroughly and dangerously good at her job. But he can't. Not without revealing everything. Not without admitting that he's been lying to her from the moment they met, that every conversation they've shared has been built on deception, that the man she thinks she knows doesn't actually exist. So he does the only thing he can. He accelerates his own investigation, works through the night while she's on her rounds, photographing documents, copying files, building an airtight case. If he can expose the corruption fast enough, if he can bring federal investigators crashing down on this place before the people running it realize she's a threat, maybe he can protect her. Maybe his lies can serve some purpose beyond his own guilt. But 3 floors above, in an office with views of the city skyline and art worth more than most people make in a lifetime, Two people are having a conversation that will change everything. The hospital administrator slides a folder across the desk to the chief of surgery, and inside are printouts of a nurse's personal documentation. Medication discrepancies, supply shortages, billing irregularities, all meticulously noted in careful handwriting, all adding up to a pattern that could unravel everything they've built. "She's becoming a problem," the administrator says, her voice as cold as winter steel. "The kind of problem that asks questions we can't afford to answer. The kind that documents things that should stay forgotten. We need to handle this before it becomes a situation." And the chief of surgery, whose hands have saved lives and stolen futures in equal measure, nods slowly. "We frame her," he says simply. "Make it look like she's the one stealing. Plant evidence. Doctor the security footage. She's a night shift nurse with access to medications and supplies. Who's going to question it? Who's going to believe her over us?" The administrator smiles, and it's the kind of smile that ends careers and destroys lives. "I'll have everything ready by Friday. That gives us 3 days. 3 days to destroy an innocent woman. 3 days to turn a healer into a criminal. 3 days to eliminate a problem that should never have existed in the first place. And nobody knows, not her, not him, not the other nurses or the security guards or the patients who depend on her care. The conspiracy moves in silence, prepares in shadows, sharpens its knives while everyone else sleeps. But here's the thing about meticulous documentation. It works both ways. He's in his bed reviewing the evidence on his phone at 2 a.m. when he sees it. A security memo buried in the files he's copied. A work order to modify camera footage in the medication room. A requisition for a lockbox key that doesn't match any current inventory. The pieces click together like bones breaking. They're setting her up. They've identified her as the threat, and they're going to destroy her before she even knows she's in danger. His hands are shaking as he calls his head of security on a burner phone, voice low and urgent in the darkness. "I need a full security audit of St. Grace Memorial. Everything. Camera access logs, key card records, medication inventory. And I need it in 48 hours. "No, I can't explain. Yes, it's that important. Just trust me." But 48 hours might as well be 48 years, because the next morning she's called into the administrator's office and everything accelerates into nightmare. He's being discharged that day, his fake injury mysteriously improved, his cover story reaching its natural conclusion. She stops by his bed to check on him one last time, and there's something different in her eyes. Something worried, something scared. "They called me upstairs," she says quietly. She's afraid someone might hear. "Ask me about medication counts, about my documentation, about why I'm so concerned with things that aren't my responsibility." She tries to laugh it off, but the sound is hollow. "I'm probably being paranoid." Right? He wants to scream, wants to grab her shoulders and tell her to run, to get out, to disappear before the trap closes. But instead he smiles and tells her she's probably right. Probably just routine. Probably nothing to worry about. And she believes him because she trusts him. Because she sees him as just another patient she's cared for. Just another connection in a job full of connections. She has no idea that the man in the bed is the only person in this building with the power to save her, and the last person she would believe if he told her the truth. She squeezes his hand before she leaves. "Take care of yourself, Alex. And remember, wherever you go next, you deserve to be treated with dignity. Everyone does." He watches her walk away and feels something die inside him. Because in trying to protect her by staying undercover, he's left her completely exposed to the people who want to destroy her. And now his time has run out. He's gathering his fake belongings when the commotion starts. Raised voices, security guards, the sharp crackle of radios. He moves to the doorway and sees them leading her through the ward in handcuffs, her face white with shock, her eyes wide with confusion and betrayal. Patients are staring, nurses are whispering, and the administrator is following behind with the chief of surgery, both wearing expressions of manufactured concern that make his blood boil. "We found evidence of medication theft," the administrator announces to the gathered staff, her voice carrying false regret like a weapon. "Security footage, inventory records. We're deeply saddened that someone we trusted could betray that trust so thoroughly." She's not even fighting. not even arguing, just standing there in handcuffs while her world collapses, while her reputation shatters, while everything she's built through years of dedication crumbles into dust. And then her eyes find him across the room, find Alex Carter, the patient she cared for, the man she saved, the person she thought understood what it meant to be discarded by a system that should protect you. She looks at him like she's drowning, and he's standing on the shore with a rope he won't throw. "Help me," her eyes say. "Please, you know me. I would never do this." And he stands there, silent, frozen, because speaking up means revealing everything, means admitting he's been lying, means destroying whatever fragile connection they've built. So he does nothing, says nothing, lets them lead her away while patients whisper and nurses avoid eye contact and the corrupt administrators smile behind their masks of concern. She looks back one more time before they take her through the doors, and the betrayal in her eyes cuts deeper than any blade. The ward falls silent. Patients return to their beds. Nurses resume their rounds. Within minutes, it's like nothing happened. Like a woman's life wasn't just destroyed in front of witnesses who will forget by morning. The system protects itself. The corruption continues, and the innocent pay the price. He makes it to the elevator before his knees give out, leans against the wall, phone in his shaking hands, calling his lawyers, his security team, his entire empire crashing back into existence after a week of invisibility. But even as he's giving orders, making demands, mobilizing resources, he knows the truth. He waited too long, stayed undercover too long, protected his investigation over the person who needed protecting. And now she's facing criminal charges while the real criminals walk free. His assistant picks him up outside, barely recognizing him in the worn clothes and unshaven face. "The evidence," his assistant asks. "Did you get what you needed?" He thinks about evidence and lies and a woman in handcuffs who saved his life and never knew his name. He thinks about building a hospital to honor her memory and then watching that hospital destroy her future. He thinks about all the ways good intentions curdle into tragedy when pride and deception get involved. "Yes," he says quietly. "I got everything I needed, and it cost everything that mattered." The question hanging in the air like smoke is this: how do you save someone when saving them means destroying the person they think you are? How do you prove innocence when your own guilt runs deeper than any crime they're accused of? And when you finally reveal the truth, when all the lies and deceptions come crashing down, will she see you as her savior or just another powerful man who used her for his own purposes? Because sometimes the worst prisons aren't made of bars and concrete. They're made of secrets and silence and the growing certainty that the person you're falling in love with is about to hate you forever. Can redemption ever outweigh deception? Or are some lies too fundamental to forgive? The question haunts him as he sits in his penthouse office, back in tailored suits and power ties, surrounded by lawyers and investigators who move with the efficiency of people who know their billionaire client doesn't accept failure. They have 72 hours before her hearing. 72 hours to dismantle a frame job so carefully constructed it would fool anyone who wasn't looking for the seams. His head of security spreads evidence across the conference table. Doctored security footage, planted medication vials with her fingerprints, falsified inventory logs that paint her as a thief who's been stealing for months. It's almost perfect. Almost. But almost isn't good enough when you've spent a week watching someone work, learning their patterns, seeing how they move through the world. He knows she always documents with her left hand. The security footage shows someone using their right. He knows she checks medication logs at the beginning and end of every shift. The theft timestamps fall in the middle when she's always with patients. He knows she's meticulous about signing out key cards. The access records show unsigned entries. The people who framed her didn't know her well enough to make their fiction believable. They saw a problem to eliminate. He saw a person, and that's going to be their downfall. His lawyers move fast. Federal investigators, subpoenas, warrants. Within 24 hours, the chief of surgery and hospital administrator are in custody, their offices being torn apart by forensic accountants who find years of fraud in hours, insurance scams, embezzlement, patient abuse. The empire of corruption collapses under its own weight once someone finally looks hard enough. The evidence against her evaporates. The charges are dropped. She's free. But she won't see him, won't take his calls, won't respond to messages. Her mother answers the door to his penthouse car and tells him what he already knows. She trusted you. You were just another patient who needed her, and she gave you everything she had. Then you watched them drag her away in handcuffs and said nothing. You want forgiveness? You want gratitude? You're looking in the wrong place. So he does the only thing he has left. He tells the truth. All of it. Publicly. The press conference is carried live on every major network. He stands at a podium with the city skyline behind him and dismantles his own carefully constructed image piece by piece. 15 years ago, a little girl almost died because hospitals valued profit over people. I saved her that night, but I couldn't save everyone. So I built St. Grace Memorial. I built it to be different. But somewhere along the way, I stopped paying attention. I trusted that good intentions were enough. They weren't. Corruption took root while I was building bigger hospitals, making bigger deals, expanding an empire built on a foundation I'd stopped protecting. He pauses, and the silence in the room is absolute. 3 weeks ago, I went undercover as a patient. No money, no name, no power, just another body the system could forget. And I met a nurse who treated me like I mattered, who saw me as human when everyone else saw a bed assignment. I fell in love with her, not because she was kind to me specifically, but because she was kind to everyone, regardless of their ability to pay, regardless of whether anyone was watching, regardless of whether it benefited her at all. She was everything I built that hospital to create, everything I'd forgotten in my pursuit of expansion. His voice cracks, just slightly. Then I watched her be arrested for crimes she didn't commit. Watched her be framed by the very corruption I'd been investigating. And I said nothing. I stood there silent because revealing myself meant admitting I'd been lying to her, meant destroying whatever connection we'd built. So I chose my own comfort over her safety. I chose protecting my deception over protecting the person who embodied everything I claimed to value. He looks directly into the cameras, and his eyes are raw with something that might be tears, or might be rage, or might be both. Her name is Emma Rodriguez. She's a night shift nurse at St. Grace Memorial, and she's the girl I saved 15 years ago, the reason I built my first hospital. The living embodiment of why healthcare should have a heart. She doesn't know any of this. She thinks I'm Alex Carter, a broke construction worker who betrayed her when she needed someone most. So I'm telling her now, in front of all of you, because she deserves the truth, even if it costs me everything. The press explodes, questions shouted over each other, cameras flashing, but he's already walking away, leaving his lawyers to handle the chaos because there's only one person whose response actually matters, and she's watching from a small apartment across the city with tears streaming down her face. She doesn't come to him. Not immediately. Not for days. But eventually, on a quiet evening when the media storm has started to fade, she walks into St. Grace Memorial and finds him in the charity ward. He's mopping floors. Actually mopping. In jeans and a hospital volunteer shirt. No entourage. No security. Just a man trying to understand what it means to serve instead of being served. She watches him for a long moment before speaking. You should have told me. From the beginning. About everything. He stops mopping, but doesn't turn around. I know. I was afraid you'd see me as just another billionaire using people for his own purposes. Turns out I was right to be afraid. I just didn't realize I'd become exactly what I feared being seen as. She steps closer. You saved my life when I was 8, built a hospital in my honor, then watched that hospital almost destroy me. That's either the saddest love story I've ever heard or the most elaborate apology in human history. He turns finally, and his face shows every sleepless night, every moment of guilt, every word of truth he should have spoken sooner. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a second chance. I just want you to know that every moment we shared was real. Every conversation, every connection. You showed me what it means to actually care about people, not just write checks and build buildings with plaques. You saved my life just as much as I saved yours. Maybe more. She's quiet for a long time. Then, so softly, he almost doesn't hear. My mother always told me that people show you who they really are when there's nothing to gain from lying. You lied to me when you had everything to gain, but you told the truth when it would cost you everything. So, which version is real? Both, he says. That's the problem. I'm the man who saved a dying girl and the man who let her be arrested. I'm the billionaire who built hospitals and the coward who stayed silent when it mattered. People aren't one thing. We're everything we've ever done, good and bad, trying to figure out which version wins. She takes another step closer. So which version wins? The version she chooses, he says. The version that shows up every day. The version that earns trust through action, not words. I can't undo what I did. Can't take back the lies or the silence. But I can show you, day after day, that the man you met in that hospital bed was more real than the billionaire in the tower. If you'll let me. Emma looks at him for a long moment, and in her eyes he sees the little girl who lived, the nurse who cares, the woman who's been hurt and still chooses kindness. I'm not promising anything except this. Show up. Actually show up. Not with money or grand gestures. With presence. With truth. With the kind of care you watched me give to strangers. Prove that you understand what you're asking for isn't forgiveness. It's the chance to become someone worthy of it. He nods. That's all I'm asking. The chance to show up. And so he does. Every day. In the charity ward where they met. Working alongside her. Learning what it means to care when no one's watching. When there's no profit in kindness. When the only reward is knowing you helped someone who needed help. They rebuild St. Grace Memorial together. Not with his money, but with his presence. And slowly, carefully, one honest moment at a time, they build something neither of them expected. Not a fairy tale, but something real. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to choose between protecting yourself and protecting someone else? Have you ever loved someone while lying to them and convinced yourself it was for their own good? Drop your answer in the comments below, because here's the truth. Nobody wants to admit. We're all one decision away from being the hero or the villain of someone else's story. The only difference is whether we choose our comfort or their well-being when the moment comes. Hit that subscribe button if you believe people can change. Hit that like button if you think some lies are too big to forgive. And share this story if you've ever had to earn back trust you never should have broken in the first place. Because the most expensive thing you'll ever own isn't a car or a house or a billion-dollar empire. It's someone's trust, and unlike everything else, once you lose it, no amount of money can buy it back.